I need to tell you about something that happened to a friend of mine that completely changed how I think about money. He was 34, making around $70,000 a year, had about 18,000 saved up, and was on track to hit his first 100,000 by 40. He felt good. He was doing everything right. Then he got diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. And here's the crazy part, his insurance covered most of the treatment. His out-of-pocket costs weren't insane. Maybe $1,500 that first year between co-pays and medications and equipment. But 3 years later, his savings account had barely moved. He was stuck at $19,000 and he couldn't figure out why. The medical bills weren't the problem. It was other hidden forces that came with being sick that quietly drained his ability to build wealth, and nobody is talking about this. So by the end of this video, you're going to understand why health problems don't just cost money in the moment. They erase future savings. They create what I call the wealth leak, and if you understand how this works, you can protect yourself from it before it happens. Let's start with what actually happened to my friend. The diagnosis itself was scary but manageable. He started taking medication, he changed his diet, he was handling it. But then the invisible costs started piling up. He was tired all the time, his energy crashed in the afternoons, he started missing gym sessions because he didn't feel well. He'd have days where his blood sugar was all over the place and he just couldn't focus at work. He didn't take a ton of sick days, maybe 3 or 4 more than usual. But his productivity dropped. He wasn't performing at the level he used to. Projects took longer. He stopped volunteering for the high visibility assignments because he wasn't sure he could deliver. When promotion season came around, he got passed over. Not explicitly because of his health, but because he hadn't been as visible, as sharp, as reliable as the year before. That promotion would have been a $12,000 raise. He didn't get it. Then his car broke down. Normally, he would have done some of the repair work himself to save money, but he was exhausted. He didn't have the energy. So he paid a mechanic $800 for something he used to handle on a Saturday afternoon. He started ordering takeout more often because cooking felt overwhelming after a long day of managing his condition. That added up to probably $200 a month he wasn't spending before. And here's the part that really got him. He stopped contributing to his retirement account for 6 months because he felt financially unstable and wanted to keep more cash on hand just in case. None of these things individually were catastrophic, but together, they completely stalled his wealth building momentum. The medical bills were $1,500, but the actual wealth leak over 3 years was closer to $40,000 or more in lost income, lost raises, lost compounding, and increased expenses. That's the invisible tax nobody warns you about and nobody sees. And this isn't just one guy's story. There's actual research on this. A study by economist James Smith looked at what happens to people's wealth when they develop new health conditions, and what he found was striking. The onset of a new health problem was associated with lower wealth accumulation that went way beyond the direct medical costs. People's financial assets grew slower, their savings stagnated, and a lot of it had nothing to do with hospital bills. It was the second order effects, the missed opportunities, the reduced capacity, the constant friction. When you're dealing with a chronic health issue, everything just takes more effort. And that effort tax compounds over time. Let's talk about the productivity piece because this is where it gets really uncomfortable. There's a concept in economics called presenteeism. It's when you show up to work, but you're not really there. You're operating at 60% capacity because you don't feel well, or you're in pain, or you're mentally foggy from medication, or you're just exhausted from managing your condition. Absenteeism is when you miss work entirely. That's easier to measure. Presenteeism is harder to see, but it's often more costly. And the research on this is pretty clear. Poor health, especially conditions like obesity, chronic pain, or metabolic disorders, leads to more presenteeism. More low output days. More days where you're just getting through instead of performing. Here's why that matters for wealth building. Your income is the engine of your financial life. Everything else, your budget, your savings rate, your ability to invest, all of it runs on the fuel of what you earn. And if your health quietly reduces your earning power, even by 10 or 15%, that kills your ability to save. Think about it this way. If you make $60,000 a year and you're able to save 10%, that's $6,000 a year going into savings. But if a health issue drops your effective earning power to 55,000 and your expenses stay the same or go up because of health-related costs, suddenly you're only saving 3,000 a year. That's a 50% reduction in your savings rate. And over 10 years, that's $30,000 in lost savings. That's before compounding, don't forget that. The issue isn't just that you're spending money on medical care, it's that you have fewer surplus months. Fewer months where everything goes right, and you can throw an extra $500 or $1,000 into savings. And when you're trying to build wealth, especially when you're trying to hit those big milestones like your first 10,000 or your first 100,000, surplus months are everything. You need consistency, you need momentum, and poor health quietly erodes both. This is the part that makes people uncomfortable, but we need to address it anyway. There's evidence that body weight and overall health status correlate with labor market outcomes, wages, employment probability, promotion rates. And this is tricky because there are multiple things happening at once. Part of it is legitimate health limitations. If you're dealing with joint pain or cardiovascular issues or chronic fatigue, you might not be able to work certain jobs or work as many hours. A small part of it is indirect discrimination. And yeah, that's real. Study after study shows that people with higher body weight face bias in hiring and promotion decisions. I'm not saying that it's fair or right, but it's measurable and it is happening. Part of it is sorting. It's like people with health challenges might self-select into lower stress or more flexible jobs that also happen to pay less. Whatever the mix of causes, the outcome is the same. Health issues can shrink your income potential. There's research from economists in Europe, like Pierre-Carl Michaud and Arthur van Soest, who tracked people over time and found that the onset of obesity was associated with significant wage penalties. We're talking 5 to 10% lower earnings, sometimes more. That's thousands of dollars a year. That's tens of thousands over a decade. In the United States, economist John Cawley has done a ton of work on this and found similar patterns. The labor market penalizes poor health, sometimes directly through reduced capacity, sometimes indirectly through bias. And here's the thing. Even if you budget perfectly, even if you track every dollar and optimize your spending, if your income is $10,000 a year lower than it could be because of health issues, you're playing the wealth building game with one hand tied behind your back. I'm not saying this to shame anyone. This is a serious channel talking about real life problems trying to make a difference. I'm saying it because understanding the system helps you navigate it and use it to your advantage. If health is affecting your earning power, that's information you can use. Maybe it means prioritizing health interventions that restore energy and capacity. Maybe it means advocating harder for yourself at work. Maybe it means finding ways to build income streams that don't depend on physical capacity, but ignoring it doesn't make it go away. Now let's talk about the mental side of this, because this might be the most important part. There's an interesting study that came out of Princeton and Harvard that looked at how financial stress affects cognitive function. They had people take IQ tests under different conditions, and what they found was shocking and eye-opening. When people were under financial strain, when they were worried about money, their cognitive performance dropped. We're talking the equivalent of losing 13 IQ points. 13. That's the same impact as losing a full night of sleep. When's the last time you pulled an all-nighter? Tell me how that went down in the comments. They called it the bandwidth tax, when your brain is constantly running background processes worrying about health or money or both. You have less mental capacity available for everything else. And this matters for wealth building because good financial decisions require bandwidth. Sticking to a budget requires bandwidth. Researching investment options requires bandwidth. Saying no to impulse purchases requires bandwidth. Planning for the future requires bandwidth. When you're dealing with chronic health issues on top of money stress, your bandwidth gets consumed. And what happens? You make worse financial decisions, you stop planning long term, you tunnel on the immediate crisis and ignore the slow building problems. You know that thing where you're trying to build savings and you're doing okay for a while and then something happens and you just can't stay consistent? That's often a bandwidth problem. Your brain is overloaded. You're in survival mode, and survival mode is terrible at wealth building. This is why people can't seem to stay on track long enough to cross those big psychological milestones. The first $10,000, the first $50,000, the first $100,000. It's not always about discipline. Sometimes it's about cognitive capacity, and health issues eat cognitive capacity for breakfast. So what does all of this mean practically? To start, it means health isn't separate from your financial plan. If you're serious about building wealth, you have to take your health seriously, not because you're supposed to, not because it's virtuous or because it gets you looks, but because poor health is one of the biggest wealth leaks you'll ever face. And I'm not talking about being perfect. I'm not talking about never eating a burger, weighing your food, or training for a marathon. I'm talking about the basics. Managing chronic conditions if you have them, getting decent sleep most nights, 7+ hours, not 5 hours, moving your body regularly, eating in a way that gives you stable energy. These aren't health interventions, they're financial interventions. Because every percentage point of productivity you get back, every bit of mental clarity you preserve, every sick day you avoid, that's money in your pocket over time. This next thing you need to do can bring some peace into your life. If you're dealing with a health issue right now, you need to factor that into your financial timeline. If you're tired all the time, if you're managing a chronic condition, if you're recovering from something, your wealth building pace is probably going to be slower than someone with perfect health. And that's okay. The trap is comparing yourself to people who don't have that friction and then feeling like a failure when you can't keep up. Adjust your expectations, give yourself credit for maintaining momentum during this tough time when you're dealing with extra drag. This is crucial. If you have any ability to invest in your health now before a crisis hits, do it. And I don't necessarily mean expensive gym memberships or fancy supplements. I mean the stuff that has the highest return on investment. Get your sleep dialed in. That's free. That might be the single highest ROI thing you can do for both your health and your earning power. Fix nutrient deficiencies if you have them. A $20 bottle of vitamin D or magnesium might genuinely improve your energy and focus if you're deficient. You get a free physical every year at the doctor with your insurance. Use it and get blood work done. That can really improve your quality of life for under $100. Find some form of movement you can actually sustain. Walking counts. Walk around your neighborhood daily. You might end up meeting someone that could become important in your network. Body weight exercises in your living room count. It doesn't have to be complicated. Deal with the health issue that's been nagging you for months. The knee pain, the constant fatigue, the thing you keep ignoring because you're too busy. That thing is costing you money every month you delay. The best time to handle it was a year ago. The second best time is now. Because here's what the research really shows. The wealth gap between healthy people and people with chronic health issues grows over time. It compounds. In your 20s, the gap might be small. By your 40s, it's significant. By your 60s, it's massive. And the earlier you address health issues, the less wealth you lose over your lifetime. This isn't about vanity. This isn't about fitting into a certain size or looking a certain way. This is cold, hard economics. Your health is the foundation your wealth is built on. And if that foundation is shaky, everything else is harder. I think about my friend a lot. He's doing better now. He got his diabetes under control. His energy is back. He's been promoted twice in the last 2 years, but he lost 3 years of momentum. 3 years he can't get back. And he's probably behind where he would have been by $50,000 or $60,000. Not because he made bad financial decisions, he was doing everything right on the money side, but because he didn't realize that health and wealth are the same system. And when one breaks down, the other suffers. If you take one thing from this video, take this. Your body is not separate from your balance sheet. Every decision that affects your energy, your mental clarity, your physical capacity, that's a financial decision. And the invisible tax of poor health, the productivity loss, the bandwidth drain, the missed opportunities, that tax is way higher than most people realize. But here's the good news. You have more control over this than you think. You can't control everything about your health. Genetics matter, accidents happen, some things are just bad luck, but you can control a lot. And the return on investment for taking your health seriously is enormous, not just in how you feel, though that matters, but in how much wealth you build over your lifetime. So maybe this week, instead of just looking at your budget, look at your health. Ask yourself, what's the one thing that's quietly draining my energy or my focus? And what would it cost in time or money to address it? Because that might be the best financial decision you make all year. If this resonated with you, give this video a thumbs up. It really helps me get this message to someone else who could use the help. Check out the next video where we talk about how to actually build money after you stop paying the invisible health tax.